That's right. It's the inevitably nonsensical, yet hopefully enjoyable, After Movie Diner Season 2. Like all good sequels, in Season 2, you can expect us to ramp up the action, expletives, gratuitous mentions of James Spader's inner thigh, and of course, the gore. That's right, we're going to be rupturing earlobes, nastily prodding dangly viscera, pulling kneecaps off and splashing about in the goopy bits. Oh, I'm sorry, I got carried away. Calm yourself, Leanna. If you enjoy the show and have pursued the recommended treatment from your medical providers, why not support the show on Patreon over at patreon.com/aftermoviediner. Rate and review the show wherever podcasts are found, and rating and reviewing is possible. Even a 1-star review provides useful insights on exactly the sort of petty-minded and wretched individual who negatively reviews free entertainment they do not need to be consuming. So, without further dribbling, please put down your lemon meringues, silence your bowels, and rub 2 nearby dogs together for the one, the only, John Cross.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the After Movie Diner. And it gives me no end of incredible thrills to announce that on the show is an old, dear, wonderful friend of mine who happened to also wind up stateside, however, all the way out west in Los Angeles. It is my college buddy, my friend, has great taste. It is Nic Meek-Whitehead. Pleased to have you on the show, finally.
Hi. It's silly that we haven't done this sooner, John.
Yes, indeed. I agree, because very often shows like mine, although I hope they're very just silly and funny and relaxing and things that people want to listen to and chill out to, very often it can just sound like a bunch of middle-aged, bearded white guys talking about middle-aged, bearded white guy stuff.
And you found yourself a middle-aged, bearded white lady.
Yes, indeed.
Here I am.
But I'm just, by which to say, I much prefer it when we can have a broader perspective on the show, is all I mean. In the best possible way.
Yeah.
Because very often that doesn't happen. So anyway, either way, it's fantastic. It's great to have you on the show. It's great that you're here in America, except because of what just happened. But it would be very great that you're in America.
Yes. Our little corners, we're doing the best we can.
We have to stick together. That's what it is.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that we have to say kumbaya to everybody, but we should at least say kumbaya to each other. And just get on with it as best we can, because that's all we have.
That's all we have.
It's all we have. But I'm so glad that we're having you on the show, because this all came out of the fact that we occasionally chat on Instagram about various different things that I'm posting. And in this occasion, it was about the movie The Substance, starring Demi and Margaret Qualley and Dennis Quaid. That has been... And Denis Quaid, he's my Denise Quaid is one of my favorite Denises. How do you feel about the Quaidster?
Oh, good Lord! I mean, to jump right in this movie, he was a revelation. Yes. I mean, obviously, this is Demi Moore's film, and she's remarkable in it. She's a wonderful actor, like very few notes, because she's just fantastic. She's an icon. Yeah, Denise was a real boy, oh boy. They were like, okay, so we've written this character as a piece of garbage. Like, how far are you willing to go? And he's like, just bring me shrimp and I'll show you.
Yes.
Like, just keep bringing
I believe
shrimp.
That's how the conversation went. He went, oh, how far am I willing to go? Just bring me shrimp. Yep. That is phenomenal. That's exactly what was said. I had been watching The Substance, and I had been commenting on it, and it was intriguing because while I was commenting on it, I was definitely coming at it from a negative perspective, and I was definitely talking about it from a kind of, Jesus, it's over 2 hours long. Stop making horror films over 2 hours long. And I was definitely coming at it like, okay, we've gone 20 minutes and it's only said the same thing over and over again 8 times. Like, come on now. You know, first of all, we can cut those 18 minutes, say what you need to say, then on to the next scene. But I was definitely watching it that way. And Nick was commenting on it because I believe you had just seen it, right, Nick?
A week or two before, we went to the theater to see it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you weren't lazy like me. But I think it's very interesting to say that this is a Mubi-produced film, and Mubi's been around for a while. It was one of, actually, an earlier streaming service that I used to have back when Filmstruck was still around. Back when I miss Filmstruck. Filmstruck was so good, and now Max has not replaced it at all. But anyway, I used to watch Mubi a lot because it had all the, if you wanted an art house film, if you wanted a auteur director film, if you wanted a foreign language film, either Mubi or Filmstruck had it. So, and Mubi had not, to my knowledge, and I don't know, this might be just the first one I'm aware of, but had not, to my knowledge, gone down the route that most streaming services eventually do, which is to make their own stuff, produce their own stuff. Even Shudder is putting its name on a bunch of horror movies that come out, like independent horror movies or whatever, and buying it up as a Shudder exclusive. So that started to happen because Netflix, Prime, others, kind of, that's how they started to make their onions. This one is the first Mubi one that I've come across. So it's definitely one that I believe has been financed almost a little bit as an art film, but that is gaining, I think, very well, certainly based on all the film blogs and all the film sites and all the Facebook film groups and whatever that I'm in. This is one that has popped up on my timeline almost daily since it came out.
Wow. Okay.
So because I think, yes, it sort of pleases both sides of the aisle. So whether you are within the horror community every day or not, the horror community, such as it is, has sort of broken off into two fractions like everywhere else. Okay. One is elevated horror, which would be typified by films like Midsummer.
Okay.
And maybe the oeuvre of Jordan Peele, if I can sound truly pretentious.
Sure.
That would be like elevated horror. And then the 80s and 90s gore fanboy horror gang, who are people who love films like The Thing and Reanimator and Evil Dead 2 and things like that.
Okay.
And what's interesting to me, and probably one of the reasons why I sort of came around on this movie, is that it while it does play squarely into elevated horror, art house horror, creative, whatever you want to call it, it's got a creative eye to it. While it does play into that, it also plays into very much the body horror, the fluid horror, the gore horror, whatever you want to call it, of those movies like Reanimator, Toxic Avenger, things like that. And I think that's probably why it's finding a broader audience.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I'm certainly not inside horror, as you would say. Like, I'm what you would classify as a coward. I don't enjoy jump scares. I don't like being frightened. Right. I have a very vivid imagination. My internal life is very rich and visual, and it's not really helped by scary pictures. Because I'll have like, I had at least a decade of recurring nightmares based on I Am Legend, which is not even that scary a film. But I found it very chilling and frightening, and it got inside there, and I had cinematic
watched
dreams.
Neil Marshall's The Descent. I'll just tell you that. Never watched The Descent.
Probably wasn't on the list. Thank you so much.
The Descent is like I Am Legend, but terrifying.
I Am Legend was already terrifying. It was. Well, it messed me up. So genuinely not a.
Which is totally fine. And we are a non-judgmental safe space here at the After Movie Diner. I want you to know.
But then at the same time, the schlocky, silly body horror over the top thing is something that I enjoy from a visual standpoint, and from especially in older movies, the special effects and the low budget, I just think is really like creative and interesting. And it's just a lot of fun to just watch blood spray around everywhere and to like to understand the formula and to know what's coming, but to still get like almost like watching a professional wrestling match. It's like, you know what's coming. It's predestined, but it's fun to be along for the ride. You know what I mean?
Oh, 1,000%. I completely agree. And it was funny. It was funny. It was, I was a very squeamish kid. I was so you'll hopefully remember a TV show in the UK called The Two Ronnies.
Oh, God.
In which they had, of course, in which they had a running comedy serial called The Phantom Fart Blower or something like that. And it was meant to be like a Jack the Ripper thing, but it was a guy who had a cape that opened the cape and went like did a raspberry. You know what I mean?
I'm regressing into previous lives, John. This is insane.
Yes. No, but that's good. No, it's like when I used to do a commentary podcast with my friend Paul Croson, who's from Leicester, and all we did was make Bobby Davro jokes and like jokes about jokes about how bad Bobby Davro was. I always try and tell people, sure, there's the England of Monty Python and, Stephen Fry and David Beckham and Benedict Cumberbatch or whatever his name is. There's that England, right? The sort of Oxbridge England. But then there's the Russ Abbott, Bobby Davro, the Les Dennis England.
God, just ugly blue dirtbags.
Yes, but you have to reckon with that. You have to understand that, sure, while we all want to be fucking, Hugh Grant or whatever it is.
Most of us are doing Tuesday nights at Blackpool Tower, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Most of us are being like, I don't really know, and thinking that constitutes an impression of anything. Like, everyone anywhere could do an impression of whatever her name was from Coronation Street, but somehow we all had to put up with Bobby Davro doing it for like a decade way past.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I like to do, Nick, in these shows is alienate my audience immediately.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I like.
And now we're doubling down because I'm English and I'm approximately the same age as you. So yes. We're in a Bobby Davro rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's like recently in the last few years, there was a movie called Let's Kill Keith Chegwin. And it was Keith Chegwin's in the movie. It was like a meta movie. But Keith Chegwin is in the movie, and basically the plot is everyone fucking wants to kill Keith Chegwin. Yeah. So look, it makes sense to me. How did we go down? Why were we talking about that?
Not entirely sure. We went from schlock to obvious schlock. Yeah.
Obvious schlock. Yeah. No, so anyway, but the substance, it lives, weirdly enough, the substance kind of lives in my sweet spot.
Okay.
Because although I definitely love gory horror and body horror, and because I'm like you, I love the prosthetics and the fakery of it. I love the craft of it. I love that someone had to sculpt something, or someone had to blow something or build something, or plaster of Paris it or whatever. They had to figure it out. Like a magic trick, or like an incredible illusion. And I love all that stuff. Like I'm fascinated by that stuff. When CGI came in, we all have to accept it. It is what it is. It's here to stay and blah, 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 blah. But to me, it will never, ever, ever replace practical effects. Practical effects will always be more interesting. And what's beautiful right now is that we are seeing... we went through a long swathe of remakes.
Did we ever? Good grief.
Right, exactly. Where people were like, well, people from the 80s want to see Evil Dead, so let's remake Evil Dead. They want to see Dawn of the Dead, so let's remake Dawn of the Dead. They want to see whatever it was. They remade everything. And what they found out was, like, new audiences flocked to those movies because new audiences didn't give a fuck about the past. But the people that they really wanted to get, us, we didn't really care. What is interesting is that we are starting to see, and maybe this is that whole, we were talking before we went live about the different generations. Maybe we're seeing that finally Gen X, which was always a middle generation, was always meant to be a short generation in between the boomers and the millennials that'll be much bigger generations and much more impactful generations. We have been watching movies directed in the last 40 years by either the silent generation or the boomer generation. Predominantly, those are the stories that have been being told. Mm-hmm. So the remake cycle was sort of the last dying gasp of that kind of cynicism about the horror genre, where it was just like, all people want are tits, ass, and gore. That's all they care about. Nobody cares about a story. Nobody cares about a character. Nobody cares about an original idea. Let's just pump this out. That's all people want. And that lasted them for about 10, 15 years. But I think what we're beginning to see, whether it's the success of something that I think is actually pretty shallow, which is like the Terrifier franchise, which just the third part of it just went like 85 million its first weekend or whatever. Wow. Like one of the biggest NC-17 openings of all time.
That's incredible.
We're either seeing stuff like that or we're seeing stuff like The Substance, which has some substance to it. It has some ideas behind it. It has some metaphor that it's trying to explore. But that it also has all the body horror, all the comedy horror, all the gore horror, all the vomitus or whatever fluid you want to talk about. It has it in the movie. And I think that it's finding that sweet spot between the two, which is, I think, where I reside. I'm not a, gore for gore's sake guy, but I'm also not a empty, just a bunch of, practical effects for practical effects' sake. And I'm also not a 3-hour elevated horror, pipe smoking, turtleneck wearing, well, I mean, Midsummer had to be 3 hours because blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm not that guy either. So I think The Substance hits me right in the sweet spot.
That's interesting. I think I agree in theory with a lot of what you're saying. It was definitely trying to do a lot and was, I would say, broadly unsuccessful.
Yes.
The acting I thought was phenomenal. There were some parts that were genuinely moving. Not just like the shock horror of it, but like some of the acting, some of the weirdly the relationship between the two characters was quite moving. But I think, oh boy, I do think it was bloated. Oh, was it bloated? It was, again, you could have cut 40 minutes out of it easy. Like I was editing it.
It was very repetitive.
I was editing it in the theater in my mind. Like I was watching it in the theater. I was supposed to be like involved, and I was there for it. I wanted to see what was going to happen. I didn't have spoilers about the movie. I didn't really have that much knowledge about it other than it was like kind of sci-fi horror. Like I was like, I'm into it. I'll give it a go. I was excited to see Demi Moore. I was thrilled to see.
Like a lot of actors, got her start in horror.
Yeah, and I was thrilled to see as much of her as I did. Obviously, I wanted to see a movie that starred two women. And men were either like gargoyles or an afterthought, which is very enjoyable.
I agree.
Like that just feels cathartic just to see, especially in something like this, something that's a little bit more genre-ified. It's, you know what I mean? Horror is, it's Mantown. It's white Mantown. Jordan Peele excluded, at least in my experience.
It is. I think that there is, because I agree with you. Yes, in terms of the people who are making horror, there are only really Diablo Cody and the Soska twins that I can really think of as sort of female. I mean, Catherine Bigelow started with sort of Near Dark and some of those films, but in general did not continue down that trajectory, went actually in a more sort of even more male-centric kind of area, actually. With war films and things. But in general, you're right in terms of it being a boys' club behind the camera. I think what's interesting about the horror genre, and in fact, exploitation in general, and again, I tread carefully here because it could be seen either way, because it's definitely a have your cake and eat it too kind of scenario. Exploitation was and horror and grindhouse, whatever B-movie, whatever genre you want to kind of label those movies in, they were sometimes the only game in town that was actually giving women central roles, leading roles, that was allowing women to be seen as either action heroes or heroines or whatever you want to call it. But also allowing for it. It's the same thing when people talk about kind of on-screen nudity. Some people see it as a male construct that is problematic because it feels like the actor has been coerced into doing something unnecessary for the screen. Or there are people like Pam Grier, for example, who talk very passionately and very eloquently that her being naked on film, for her, was an empowering, strong, important moment. So, and I, as a male, I can't talk to either side, but I mean, this is what you end up kind of hearing. And I feel that one of the things The Substance does, I actually think, very well, is continue this tradition. I was just talking the other night about the X trilogy, X, Pearl, and Maxine, which does the same thing. It puts the control, even though it's made by Ty West, another white dude with a beard, it puts the control and the power of the character's decisions, which is a very interesting and important distinction, in the hands not only of those characters but of the women characters.
Yeah,
I think that the substance does the same thing.
No, you bring up something really interesting, because I mean, you said, like, as a man, it's difficult for you to comment on how a woman feels being naked on film.
Right.
And obviously for every woman who's naked on film, there's a different story behind that, because not every actor is going to be able to come to that decision on their own. There's coercion, there's all different kinds of tactics at play, and obviously all different kinds of politics at play, because it's a business. It's that, it's big business. But I thought what I enjoyed, if I can be a perv, what I enjoyed the most about the substance was the nudity, because I thought it was fascinating how, because I watched it again. I watched it again on streaming yesterday while I was making chili before work, natural bedfellows, to watch a real gory movie while you're chopping vegetables.
Well, there is that fantastic scene where she's just putting everything in the blender and then just like throws the fucking blender
eggs everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I managed
chicken bones and stuff.
I managed to keep myself restrained. But as I watched it again, I watched it in 1.5 speed because I was a squeezy for time. And the parts of the movie, because when I watched it in the theater, I thought this movie is, generally speaking, quite slow. But the nudity when she/they are alone in the bathroom, alone or together, the nudity is drawn out, and not in a way that it doesn't. Even when I went to see it, full disclosure, I did not know that it was a female director. When I saw that nude scene, I was like, this is a female director, because it's the body is shown top to toe. Whoever's body it is, you're shown the whole thing, and somehow it is not. And it is sexualized, obviously, because it's a naked body, and we're human beasts, and that's what we do.
Yes.
But when you contrast that with when later on, when she's making the pilot for the show, when they're filming that and there are men in the room, because obviously all of the behind the camera crew is men, almost all of them, apart from like maybe her assistant. Yeah. The way that her body is sexualized in those scenes when she actually is wearing clothing is obscene. Like it's very, very visceral. It's extremely sexual. Everything's sweaty and shiny. The closer she's cut into discrete pieces by the lens that is in front of the lens that's filming the movie. It was fascinating. I really, really enjoyed the nudity in this movie. Yes. I just thought it was incredible.
I completely agree, and very often, there are roles and parts that, the critics and the media will trip over themselves to call brave or daring. Mm-hmm. I think that Demi Moore's performance, especially considering who Demi Moore is, right? So it's not just. It's a daring performance for any actor. Mm-hmm. It is a daring performance for any actor whatsoever. Because Laid Bare doesn't even cover it. Like, it's not even the tip of the iceberg of what it is. But an actor who previously had struggled with body image issues, who had previously had, famously, plastic surgery, on her breasts and later on her face. Someone who, her previous husband and whatever, they'd been very open about like what he wanted from her and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then someone who had, earlier in her career, whether it was the Vanity Fair cover or whether it was the movie Striptease or whatever it was, tried to, in her best way, own her own body, own her own message, own her own sexuality, and make her own decisions, whether it was producing those movies or controlling the narrative of that Vanity Fair shoot or whatever it is, it became very important to her, I'm sure, based on numerous different reasons. When you put all of that into this film, especially with the 80s aesthetic, because, where is Demi Moore from? Like, what do we think of Demi Moore? Like, we think of those quintessential 80s and 90s movies where she is, bigger than big. Like, she's the, her and Meg Ryan, that's it for, like, American Sweethearts, right? So, they're in such cornerstone films that, anyone who grows up post those movies will have seen those movies at some point. So her doing what she does in this film, both with the nudity, but also I think where this movie turned me around. So I think when I was first watching this movie, I was very incorrectly watching it as a movie where I knew a ton of stuff about Demi Moore and the surgery she'd had and blah, 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 blah. And I was watching this movie and I was thinking like, well, this seems a bit hypocritical. Like, what the fuck? Like, this movie's talking about, age and body image and people over 50 in Hollywood and blah, 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 blah. And it felt like right off the bat, a little bit how I felt about Barbie. And Barbie was a movie for me where I'm like, look, I get it. I really get it. Like, men are fucking terrible. No, you're not going to get any argument from me. Men are fucking terrible. I agree with you. Even the good ones, and I consider myself maybe possibly in the top 50,000 of potentially good people. Even those ones have thoughts and whatever that you would be like, oh, for fuck's sake. And you would immediately, you know what I mean?
You're the monsters, I get it.
Right, we are all fucking monsters. 1,000%. But very often when because again, I consider myself progressive or whatever you want to call me. But when I watched Barbie, I was like, are these things that Barbie's talking about really still a problem? And if they are, well, Jesus fucking Christ, like what? Like it seemed very much like the kind of stuff people were complaining about in my mother's generation and even my grandmother's generation. I'm not saying some of those things are still not a problem, because I'm sure they are. But in general, we've got to be further than whatever the message of Barbie was, right? That's how I felt watching Barbie.
Tough to say. I watched Barbie in a pretty high emotional state. Cried like 3 times. And
I totally understand that. I do totally understand that. I'm not trying to belittle Barbie.
There was a lot in it that I did connect to. This is the sidebariest sidebar, but there was a lot in it that I did connect to. And a lot in it that I feel like when you're in a room and you see another woman and you see things, you just know. Like there's vibes. There's just, I don't know. This is woman stuff, I think.
No, totally. And I don't want to be, I'm just saying that there weren't any women in my life, whether it was all my female friends, whether my sisters, whether my wife or whatever, that when I watched Barbie, wouldn't, if they were in that situation, not be like, go fuck yourself and go off and do whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just meant that the premise of Barbie seemed to stem from this idea that women can't ever break from whatever that oppressive narrative is.
Yeah.
And I see that evidence in my life that women have broken from that. Not in the millions, but I've seen that in my own life to a way where I'm like, is this net... And again, I'm male, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But is this a healthy narrative to constantly regurgitate? That was more what I was saying.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And also, I am a white woman, so give me an asterisk as well. I'm a diminutive white woman in Los Angeles. It's basically a superpower, that like, when have I ever been stopped by TSA? Literally never. Like,
I've been stopped by TSA like a worrying amount of times, but I think it's the beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's, it's complicated because obviously I know comparatively I've got it real good, but at the same time, there are hoops that I jump through that men wouldn't even think about. during very specific.
That
I can think of specific circumstances. For example, when I do trade shows, you know this. You've worked at Javits Center. When I go to the Javits Center, the Teamsters and the electricians and all those guild guys, they're traditional guys for the most part. There's more women in there than you would expect, which is very nice. But I find myself playing dumb quite a lot. I'm 42 years old, but I generally can pass for a little younger if you don't look too close. And don't ask about my white hairs. And I have to play that up. I know, John, you're half and half there. It's crazy. I have to play up the dumb young girl card. Like I have to play that so hard just to do my job, just to like try and just get through the day without some guy like talking to me about how I'm hanging my lights or like asking me to get out of it or whatever it is. It's just like,
that's awful. That sounds awful.
Well, it is, but at the same time, like I'm a white lady, so I can weaponize that from time to time from my friends who are not white ladies. It's pretty fun.
No, listen, I'm the first to acknowledge my overbearing privilege, but I also hope to watch. I think it's different, and this plays into the substance as well. There are movies I watch now with 38 years of adult film. I started watching adult film, like films that were made for predominantly people over 20 when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
So there is now about 38 years worth of filmic knowledge, stuff I've seen, and again, listen, there are far more knowledgeable people than me, but I have watched a little bit from every decade, a little bit from every genre, a little bit from every, whether it's the Z grade shot on VHS in Iowa in 1989 that lasts 60 minutes, or whether it is Lawrence of Arabia or Alfred Hitchcock films or whatever you want to, Casablanca or whatever it is. So, I think that when I come to movies like Barbie or come to movies like The Substance or come to movies that they're predisposed to have a message. And I'm not against movies having a message, but I think it's how you deal with that message and how you... I think people have to talk more down to the audience these days than they did 30 years ago. And I think that as someone who has seen a lot of these discussions already happen through the decades of pop culture, through what he's watched, to be in 2024 and watch The Substance, or be in 2023 and watch Barbie or whatever, there is a part of you where you're like, well, I mean, hang on a second. Again, like what we were talking about earlier, like what movies tackled this 40 years ago. Like what is, and I get from a female perspective, they're like, no, this shit still happens every single fucking day. What are you talking about? You're an idiot. I understand it, but it doesn't mean that from a filmic, scripting, story, whatever level, listen, my 44-year-old white dudeness will come into play at some point. Not that I don't take a message from it, but I also go, isn't there a better way to make this message?
And at the same time, there's a lot of movies that we've seen a lot of times before, speaking of 44-year-old white guys. So it is. The
enemy. I am the enemy.
I mean, I'm going to come to Connecticut and fight you.
Fight me with sticks.
No, just with lady fists.
Okay. By the way, putting the word lady before anything is inherently funny. There isn't anything
I know.
that isn't funny. Yeah. It starts with lady fingers and then it just goes...
Lady fingers is disgusting.
It is a disgusting name for an otherwise rather pleasant sugared biscuit. Sponge cake biscuit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not.
Only a man could have come up with lady fingers.
Yeah.
Anyway.
These reminded me of my mother. Jesus. Yeah.
Everything fucking reminds
there's certainly there's some originality within The Substance. I feel like there's a great movie in there But the concept is neat. The concept is super cool, and a lot of the execution, specifically of the effects, the practical effects, and the rebirth, all of that stuff was, I thought, visually very impressive.
Phenomenal.
The sets were cool. The lighting was cool. The sound design was phenomenal. Like, that was what I got from my rewatch. I kept having, because I was watching it again, 1.5, but I kept having to slow it down again because the sound design was so good. And I was like, I want to hear this. Like, I wanted to hear the hatching sounds. And I wanted to hear, obviously, the the finale scene of the blood spraying. The sound is incredible because it's just a horror sustained chord, like classic style sustained chord, but it is monstrous and it's so loud and it's so visceral. This was where Chris was like, I don't understand what's happening, and I'm like, oh, I'm back in. I love it again.
Oh yeah, no, I'm and again, I think you can draw a line probably down this particular movie's fandom, and half the fandom will think that the first 2/3 of the movie are the best, and then the other fandom will think that the last third of the movie are the best. And I guarantee that the people who like the last third of the movie were born before 1990.
Yeah, probably.
I'm just saying. Because the last third of this movie is phenomenal. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal. I can't even... But I also want to point out, I started watching it and felt very negatively towards it. The scene where one of the best scenes in the movie, because not only is it a scene that I think speaks very much to what I've witnessed in my relationships with women and how they feel about themselves before they go out, but also, full disclosure, how I felt 1,000 times. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't consider myself a vain person, but like, when I'm going out, do I want to look like a sloppy piece of shit? No, of course I don't. So while I'm not a vain person, there are times where I have tried to do my hair 7,000 times and gone, fuck it, I'm just going to wear a hat and try and pull off hats, even though I clearly can't pull off hats. But, I've tried throughout my life to be a hat guy, even though, come on, who am I kidding? So, but it's the same with the scene in the movie where Demi Moore finally decides, all right, I am alone. I'm not doing anything with this section of time that I've been given in this process, because they're given kind of 7 days each between the young version and the older version. We should probably explain the plot of The Substance before I go any further. But
I just assumed everybody watched it. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. No, it's fine. But there is a scene where she decides, okay, I'm going to try life, right? She has this moment where she's going to be like, instead of living for the younger version of myself, who was actually just fucking annoying me at this point, because I have to look at her through the window with this huge billboard, and fuck her, and I hate her, and she's awful. What she wants to do is she's like, well, I should, I'm 50. Let's go out. Let's go on a date, whatever. And she is recently bumped into with a very kind of Groundhog Day Ned Ryerson, like, Bing, Ned Ryerson. That's it. That guy, who out of nowhere at the beginning of the movie, he's an old high school friend of hers that she kind of randomly bumps into in the street. And very clumsily, because he's
a goober.
He's a goober, but he's also in awe of the fact that someone from his high school is this big workout actor guru kind of person. He clumsily gives her his number, and, we should meet up and have a chat and whatever. So later on, when she is swapping her life in between her and her younger doppelganger self, she decides, okay, I'm going to go on a date with this guy. And she tries to dress herself up. And she tries different hairstyles, and she tries different makeup, and she tries different dress combinations and how to button up her dress and all this other stuff, to the point where she then just puts her phone on the nightstand, goes over to a chair and sits solemnly by herself in the window because she's like, I'm not going out at this point. Like, there's nothing I can do to make myself look even remotely the woman that I want to look when I sit down opposite this guy who 6 months ago I wouldn't have looked twice at, but here I am in my life. And it's that to me is a very, very, very powerful scene for like a myriad of reasons. But it's also the one scene that turned me around on the movie because I'm like, wait, that is a scene I am betting everyone can relate to.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I found, like both times I watched it, I found the sequence when she's, because you can tell what it's building to.
Yeah.
Which is nice that you felt the same way. You could tell that it was building to, she doesn't know this guy. She doesn't necessarily like this guy, but she already feels like she's not enough. And, she puts on this stunning red dress and these crazy gentlemen prefer blonde elbow gloves. And she looks, right. I mean, she could go to Denny's in that and everybody would just be like, who cares? You could look amazing. This is Los Angeles. Yeah. Like, you're perfect and wonderful. Like, right. and she looks out the window at the billboard and she looks in the mirror at herself and she just cannot come to terms with it. And she can't reconcile that, what she sees, with a person that anybody would find desirable, because all the movie has done is tell her that, no, old, like gross. Yeah. No, thank you. Even for a guy that told her that she was the most beautiful woman in the world, which is what he told her when he gave her his number. And she's like, no, not good enough, because the voice inside her head that says not good enough, that's created by everybody else, is louder. And it was a very effective and affecting scene. And when she's when she's physically smashing the makeup off her face and she's smearing the lipstick off with so much pressure, and like you said, like her history informed that performance, like her personal history informed that performance. And it was super effective. And the end of it was just completely tragic. Like, it was just like, well, where do we go from here? And I mean, one of the problems that I had with the movie was that the whole point of the substance is you are one. That's their slogan, that it's like you're the same person. I had no sense that they were the same person between her and Sue. I just didn't feel like they were the same person because Sue's such an unrepentant bitch. She's just such a monster, like a vacuous, smiley. Like I just couldn't understand that this person who's like made this choice out of despair, rage. Right. Then when she discovers herself and she discovers this, like, that she technically the same person, just with like a really nice ass, like suddenly she's like, she takes on this persona of like this ditzy thing. I guess it's like cathartic for her. It's just hard to see the character that Demi plays inside the character of Sue. That was my problem. I wanted them to feel more connected, and I liked when she deactivates her towards the end and then brings her back and they're alive at the same time. And it leads to that really quite spectacular fight scene, which is, again, too long, but really quite fun. Also, it doesn't make a lot of sense because she was struggling to move originally because she's so old. And then she's suddenly like a running around, dragging him by the ankles ass kicker.
Yeah, throwing her into walls and stuff.
I suspended my disbelief because it was real fun.
Of course, yeah.
And bloody as anything, my goodness. I liked that they didn't really speak to each other during that time, because what would they have to say to each other, because they're the same person? Like, they have more conversations when they're alone as each individual person than they do when they're actually together. It was... Right. I felt like there was a lot left on the table. I feel like you could have made a really cool movie out of this concept, a really cool movie. And I just feel like it tried to do everything. And also it thought the audience was real stupid. And I don't know if I don't know if that's a horror thing or what, or if it's just
No, I think that nowadays This movie is made, again, to both be wildly entertaining, but also to be very much a message movie. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're writing your message and you are sort of plotting out your metaphors at what point they're going to show up and what you're going to kind of do with them, I think you probably over-egg the pudding a little bit. Just because you're like, well, wait a minute, if I just say this, will they extrapolate to that? Do I not need to say this and that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if we were just having a conversation and we were just chatting back and forth and we were throwing ideas about, your brain would, any idea I threw out, your brain would be going, oh, blah, 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 and extrapolating it. And anything you said, I would be extrapolating it. There is the reason why people talk about people having a shorthand with each other, it's because they don't need to fill in all the things we just assume that are there. But I think when you're writing a script, especially one that is clearly as important as this is, you probably try and at least double down, if not triple down in some occasions, with the examples of the message they're trying to put out there.
And the callbacks were clumsy.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, they were punches in the face. It was unsettling.
No, I agree. I think that, though, as someone who inherently loathes 98% of television.
Okay.
like loathes, actively loathes anything that is a reality TV, competition TV, anything, the news, anything that purports to show real things happening when actually all they show you is garbage in order to sell drugs in the 5 commercial breaks that they're going to have during the TV, interspersed with a lot of backslapping nonsense that doesn't go anywhere. I have no time for any of it. I have zero time for any of it.
Sure.
And I've actually become quite amazed and almost disheartened with just how popular it is amongst almost everyone. I just see it all as part of the problem. I just really do. But what was interesting was, in the substance, her looking at the billboard, right? Her looking at her younger self. And this is where I turned 180 on the movie. Instead of me I thought that when I first watched The Substance, or when I was first about a third of the way in, I thought it was sort of advocating for this. I thought it was sort of advocating for shitty television, which is just men zooming up close on women's asses or, sweaty cleavage or whatever it is. Like, I thought it was advocating for that in some weird way. It wasn't till after that scene with the makeup and all the rest of it, she goes out and looks at the billboard and that whole scene we just described. It wasn't till after that I was like, oh no, wait, it's condemning everything that is. It's condemning because my biggest problem, even as someone who is a heterosexual, in touch with his sexuality, male, whatever you want to call it, when I see a woman on TV being either infantilized or overly sexualized, it is the biggest turnoff. And I'm not trying to I'm not fucking running for office. I'm just saying it's like a big fucking shitty turnoff.
Yeah.
It just is. It just is. Because I'm like, I remember when, I know a lot of people consider her a feminist icon now, so I don't want to talk. But that Britney Spears music video was the Hit Me Baby One More Time, I find insanely problematic.
No, it's cringe as hell. It was cringe at the time.
I find it insanely problematic. Every time Miley Cyrus thinks we need to see her nipples, I find it just wantonly problematic. But because I'm like, I don't understand what that message is. I really don't understand what it seems to be about the self. It doesn't seem to be about the collective.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the efficacy of the movie then, that it made you feel like, because obviously then the turn is that the movie's like, oh no, actually, this is dumb and terrible. These guys are monsters.
Right.
I mean, I knew those guys were monsters because they were men.
Right. No, 1,000. Seriously, I get it. I knew, and by the way, I knew Nic Meek-Whitehead was a monster from the first moment I saw him because it was shot relentlessly in close up while he like mopped his brow.
While he struggled to pee and ate all those shrimps. Yeah.
Yes.
Every instant of him on screen.
And I have to say, I did not like those close-ups. Yeah. I did not like those close-ups.
I found that part of the body horror, that it was just like, so like, that was very disturbing because it was so close and it was so disgusting. And he was like, I mean, he must be fun to work with, man, to be just sort of like, yeah, let's do it. Yep. We're going to make you look hideous. We're going to make everybody cringe at the sight of you. And he's like, yeah, let's do it, man.
I cannot believe. I mean, there's one thing. It was very Terry Gilliam-esque. I mean, this movie has like 1,000 very obvious influences.
Oh yeah,
and I don't mind that. It's fine. But I mean, there's Reanimator in here. There's The Fly in here. There's Evil Dead in here. There's Terry Gilliam's Brazil. There's the Cinderella story. There's all sorts of things. There's The Shining. You know, this wears its influences broadly on its sleeve. Which I don't mind. It's fine because it was using them as a shorthand for people, as a way in for people to experience the story. And I think that there is a point where you were saying earlier about the two characters not feeling like the same woman. I think what's been interesting, and I've been saying this recently just about America in general, but having dealt with and met and lived around addicts, I feel like America to some extent and Demi Moore and her younger counterpart Margaret Qualley in this movie were behaving like addicts, meaning that, and so there's two flaws. First of all, I don't think human beings change that much. I really don't. I think if you're self-aware, I think if you are genuinely interested in living in a better world, and I think if you put an eighth of your brain into everything you do on a daily basis, yes, you can gradually become a better human being. But in general, people don't make huge leaps in 30 years, really. In general, they don't. Mm-hmm. And I think what this movie was sort of saying between the young and the old is two things. First of all, it's the idea that really between the age of 20 and between the age of 50, are we meant to believe that Demi Moore's character kind of grew that much? You know what I mean? Just based on the fact that at the beginning of the movie, she is presented, and the world is presented as very, self-aggrandizing or ephemeral, very kind of plastic and fake, and but also self-aggrandizing. So you kind of go, well, okay, it makes sense to some extent that like the young. It's not like the younger version is going to be any more enlightened than the older version. The older version isn't doing anything to combat the younger version's, constant breaking of the rules and extending the timeline.
The older version is not enlightened in any way. She just wants to grab back youth. Like it's not like she has a grand plan or any kind of lofty, noble cause. She just wants to be young again because she feels crappy and she doesn't want to feel crappy anymore. I think to a certain extent she wants to feel young again to get the validation, because you miss validation if you've had it. It's, hell of a drug. You want it back again and again. And that's why.
I only wish I knew, but yes.
I've been validated in my time.
I'm trying to think if I've ever been validated. No, probably not. On my wedding day to Kim, that was probably the only time I've ever been validated. There she is. But yes, outside of that, no validation whatsoever. Hence why I'm still doing a podcast like 400 episodes in. Clearly, Daddy and Mummy never loved me. Anyway, so... but no, so I think that I quite took to the fact that the commonality between the two was they really didn't give a fuck about each other. They only gave a fuck about themselves, and they couldn't get it into their heads that they were the same being, which is the behavior of an addict, which is where, I'm a good person. Right, but you fucked yourself up on heroin, and you lost your house, and lost your car, and you fucking annexed everyone else from your life. We know you have a good heart, but, like, everything you've done is terrible. You know what I mean? Like, It just is what it is. And I felt like that was sort of what I was witnessing. So to me, once I'd made the leap that I was like, oh, wait, it's condemning all this shit. It's not endorsing it. And it's not tacitly endorsing it, like by condemning it, but really kind of endorsing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, no, this is terrible. But like women, we should still look pretty, right? Like, it wasn't doing that. And I was worried that it was sort of doing that. It very much was condemning it. Once I realized that, I had a much better time with it.
Okay.
And I think that when you think of... The ending is both absolutely hilarious and absolutely horrifying, because the way that the blob thing monster that she becomes, spoilers for anyone listening who hasn't seen the movie, go watch the movie now. She becomes a blob monster.
After a bunch of stuff comes out.
Yes. Who gives birth to a face tit.
Yeah, she vomits a boob.
She vomits a boob. Face boob. Face boob. She births a face boob.
She hunks up a boob.
But her like sellotaping Demi Moore's portrait face
with the eye hole stabbed in and the lipstick smeared on. It's remarkable. It's really...
I mean, that, to me, that warrants the movie's existence right there and then. It was just so delightful.
No, when my husband and I watched it, I was like, this movie thought we were stupid. It treats the audience like they're idiots until the last 20 minutes when they're like, oh, guess what? I'm an idiot too. Like, let's be stupid together and let's have a really fun time. Like, let's forget all of the, like, meaning and let's just get, like, sure, there's a potentially a woman. There's a blob thing with boobs that's just spraying her blood over all of these monsters, most of whom are men, and everybody's just covered in viscera, and it goes on forever, and it's incredible. Yeah, and then she just like kind of explodes, and then slithers, and it goes on, and it's so good, and it's that blurred line between body horror and pure childlike comedy that I just love so much, because it's obviously like the basic theory is like you laugh at other people's misfortune, and that's like a human thing where it's like a relief mechanism or a
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, where it's just like, well, you know, there but for the grace of God go I. But when it's heightened to that level, and then when it's just like, when you're like, oh, here's a logical stopping point. Oh, no, they keep going. Okay, well, there's another logical stopping. Oh, no, some more. Oh, she's okay. And it just goes on and on. It's hilarious. It was so funny.
Well, and that's where we were talking about before about like Bobby Davro and stuff. We were talking about kind of the comedy that like we grew up with and the kind of stuff that we were into. And the fact that, you know, there was the Phantom Raspberry Blower or whatever the Two Ronnie sketch was, that when I was like 6, really scared the bejesus out of me. It genuinely did. Like him with the big black cloak and the scary top hat, like scared the bejesus out of me. And then at 9 years old, when it was the 20th anniversary of Monty Python, they did a compilation show, and halfway through, they showed Sam Peckinpah's Salad Days, which is a sketch in which a lot of very like, oh, hello, mama, hello, papa, British gents holding tennis rackets end up in a huge cacophony of like gore, basically, where the guy's playing piano, someone slams a piano lid down on him and he lifts his bloody stumps up that starts spewing blood everywhere. There's another guy who gets a tennis ball thrown at his face. He goes, ah, like that as it hits his eye, and then blood starts spraying out of the corner of his eye. And it's called Sam Peckinpah's Salad Days, and it's meant to be how ridiculous it would be to put like a Morgan Creek costume drama, Pride and Prejudice, British BBC type thing, along with a Sam Peckinpah like violent gore fest. Yeah. And you put them together. And I remember being 9, watching that, running through to my parents and being like, I don't think I can like Monty Python anymore. That's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life because I was so squeamish.
Yeah.
I was so squeamish. And it wasn't until I was about 14 and I had bought the book of The Meaning of Life because I was still a huge Python fan. I just couldn't watch the gory bits. And in the middle of Meaning of Life, the guy in the live organ transplant sequence has his organs removed. It's just that's what happens. And it's Terry Gilliam, and they put a knife down his stomach and they start pulling out intestines and viscera and gore and whatever. And I would never watch whenever I watched the movie, I would fast forward that bit because I knew it was coming because I had the book. And then I remember going, well, wait a minute. If I've looked at the picture in the book, and I'm not kidding, the center fold of the entire book was Terry Gilliam lying on a thing covered in blood with like intestines hanging off his body and everything like that. That was the center fold of The Meaning of Life book if you bought it. So I went, well, hang on a second. If I can look at this picture, I can watch it on film. Like, what am I worried about? And I remember putting the VHS in when my mum was out, so I didn't, like, if I got scared, I didn't have to deal with that. Yeah. And watching The Meaning of Life and suddenly going, oh, I'm fine. None of this bothers me. It's good. It's fine. I'm fine.
What a fun
And from that moment on, I've been able to appreciate not only horror, like full-on gory horror, but I think this wonderful, beautiful fine line that most of our favorite horror films growing up walk, which is the comedy horror line, which is you either want to get a laugh or you want to get a scream, but you better be getting some reaction from an audience. And I sort of love that. It's horror and comedy both being two sides of the same coin, but they're also the only genres in film that rely on a visceral reaction from the audience. You have to laugh or you have to scream. Like, if you're not doing either one, it's not a good horror movie. It's not a good comedy. And I think that the fact that comedy horror is, and by extension kind of body horror and other stuff like that, is so prevalent is because of those two seemingly antithetical ideas that actually play very well together. Because it's all about reaction. It's all about their reactionary genres.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in a covenant with the audience in a way that most styles of movies aren't. Like, you don't get that if you go to see a Transformers movie. You don't have a relationship with what's on screen in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally an action movie will make me go like, yeah, like just a little like it's not a big movement, but it's just a little like, whatever, like at the end of a sports movie where like, the underdogs have come out to win the sports game. Which sports movie
specifically? Is it Tin Cup?
It's definitely not Tin Cup.
That's the last sports movie I watched.
It would be like Best of Times with Robin Williams and Kurt Russell.
Oh, sure.
It would be a good sports movie. But you get to the end when the underdogs just get across the finish line for that one time in human existence. You go, right, yeah, like it's a little, yeah. But like apart from that, no, there aren't any other.
Yeah, because
you don't watch a drama or a thriller in the same.
And
way.
The best kind of action movies really push you in that way towards comedy as well, because really the action sequences in I don't know, like an 80s action movie or in something as ludicrously heightened as the Fast and Furious is, it's like it's pushing you. It's like, I see your suspension of disbelief, but let me just shove it a little bit further. Like, let me see if you can believe this. And it's a conversation between the filmmaker and the audience that you really don't get unless they're like, let me fuck with you. Like,
oh, no, that's fantastic. That's exactly, like, that's the only way to watch the Fast and Furious movies. And it's not, a lot of people think that it's to laugh at them. It's not about that at all. It's about realizing that two things are happening. First of all, they are selling you that Vin Diesel could jump his car in midair while Michelle Rodriguez is catapulted from another car hundreds of feet away to slam full on into the windscreen.
And she's like, hey, babe.
Yeah. And they're absolutely fine and they drive away. Yeah. on one hand, you go, okay, stop the fucking... Can we press pause? What did I just watch? Did I just watch?
Yes, because inside you were two wolves, and one of the wolves is saying, you can't do that. And the other one is like, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah, they did that.
What the hell?
Right? So there's that. But there's also the level of genius and the level of testicular fortitude to be like, oh, no. We're not just going to sell this to the audience, but by the end of the movie, someone's going to be driving a Corvette off the top of a fucking submerged ice submarine. That's going to be happening, and everyone's just going to be fine with it. We're just going to be like, yes, Tyrese Gibson can totally drive a car well enough on the ice without any chains on the tires that he can drive over a nuclear submarine breaking out of the ice and save the day. We're totally going to believe that. The fucking cojones on whoever says we're gonna not only are we gonna stage this, we're gonna be dumb enough to fucking stage this. This is gonna be the silliest thing you've ever seen in your life. But on the other hand, they're gonna be like, we're gonna sell this so fucking hard that the audience aren't gonna know whether to laugh or, pardon my French, orgasm.
Yeah, because it's presented with sincerity. And all of the actors are like, we're doing it. Vin's like, these are the best movies ever made. Best movies ever made.
But I can't disagree with him.
They're fun.
And
they
hate
pushed
myself.
the envelope. They revitalized people going to the movie theater. They revitalized big, stupid, spectacle movies.
No, but Tyrese Gibson and Ludacris in this franchise.
I love Tyrese.
Driven a car.
They're so good.
No, I love them both. Have driven a car in space. Ludacris. Let me just go.
It's Ludacris, babe. He can drive in space. Tyrese Gibson
have driven a 90s car with like a rickety fucking rocket on the back, like something out of an Acme Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote box on the back of a fucking 90s Volkswagen or something, and they shoot it into it's a Pontiac, whatever it is. They shoot it into space, and they drive in space. Like, this is like they just went, this is fine. Yeah. This is fine.
Remember when they were boosting combination TV VCRs in the first one?
Remember when DVD sales were all the crux of the fulcrum of this franchise? Yeah, suddenly they're fucking Tokyo drifting, and then the next thing you know, there's like intricate fucking plot lines where Han's dead, but then he comes back, and Jason Statham's a bad guy, but then he's a good guy, and Kurt Russell is like a super secret agent who shows up and is like, Vin Diesel, you are nothing but a street racer in a tank top who's mildly misogynistic and most definitely questionable of ego and other stuff. Yes, you should come and be super secret agents with me and my entirely incredibly trained team. Mm-hmm. You guys who seem to be able to drive pretty fast, come be secret agents.
And then it's they just Helen Mirren, you want to take a turn in these movies? And she's like, yeah, why not? Whatever.
Oh,
I've got an
Mirren is all over that shit. Mirren is loving every goddamn second of being in the Fast and Furious franchise. I just want to see a scene where it turns out that her and Dame Judi Dench are like rampant lesbians in the best way, in the way that you want in like a big exploitation movie, where just Mirren and Dench. It's just incredible, and it's passionate, and it's everything you want to see in a Fast and Furious movie. The only objection I have to those films, and I've loved every single one of them, the biggest objection I have is that the big bad that they've chosen for Fast X and Fast X Part 2, which is just, you're at Fast X. Fast 11 is not it's not a problem for people. You don't need to have Fast X and Fast X2. Just 10 and 11 and 12 and 13. Like, it's not a problem. 1. You don't have to be Yes, you don't have to be coy about it. It's like Harry Potter. Like, oh, we've broken the last movie into 2 movies. No, you haven't. What you've done is you've not edited enough, is what you've done. That's what you've done. But no, the Fast X Part 1, the fact that it's like a highly effeminate Hispanic is like the big bad guy, I find just a little distasteful.
We'll see. I mean, who fucking knows what's going on with this thing? Like,
right?
Because I feel like after the 5th one, it's like 24. It's like, how could you shark jumped so early? It's like, how many sharks are there? And it turns out there's infinity sharks, and they just keep jumping. Right. As did 24 for a couple seasons.
Yeah, no, 24 was exactly the same way. Also, what I hated about 24 is you could have cut out 3 seasons of 24.
No.
Because the worst thing about 24 is to extend the seasons to 24 episodes. You had to have at least 12 of those 24 episodes be people being like, oh, come on, we can't let Jack Bauer do X. When you know full well that 6 episodes from now, Jack Bauer is going to very much
most
do
assuredly
X.
be doing X. Yes, that's his whole thing.
Why did we have to sit through 5 episodes of fucking pearl clutching and fucking neck wringing? Just
those squares don't get it, John. Those squares didn't understand what Jack was capable of.
Give Jack Bauer a pickaxe and a machine gun and an industrial-sized tub of lube, and we've got all our problems solved. Jack Bauer is the man.
Just give him a marker pen. He'll slit
This is a guy who got hooked on heroin, weaned off heroin in the space of like 3 days. It's a beautiful
It was the same season, John. I think it was. Yeah. I think it was like.
It was all in within 24 hours. Is that what
I
it happened?
think it was 4 hours. He's like, you know what? I've still got the track marks, but I'm okay.
Because I'm good.
Fortitude.
I'm good. Yes, because Jack Bauer.
The aforementioned cojones.
Yes. Listen, Peter Weller was the bad guy in season 5, and Peter Weller was a legend in that. That's where Peter Weller from RoboCop to 24 season 5. That's the sweet Peter Weller spot. Anything within those two, between those two, Peter Weller is at the top of his game. He's a bebop scat genius jazz cat.
All right.
No, he is. Peter Weller is a whole vibe. I've interviewed him, and it was
that's nice.
Quite a trip. Quite a trip. It was a bebopping cat scat jazz cacophony like you've never seen. Okay. Anyway, going back to the substance.
Yeah, we once again segued significantly.
We did. Veered vastly to the left with a whole bunch of random cobblers. The substance. I think that one of the other things that persuaded me to love the film, as much as I do now, even with all of its faults, is that there have been a series, and it's the same way I sort of feel around the Terrifier franchise. Terrifier franchise, it's not made for me. Everything that's in the Terrifier franchise I've seen 1,000 times and then some. The substance, again, like I said, the influences were very obvious to someone who sort of seen all the movies that play into this movie. But there's 2 ways to look at that. There's the grumpy old man way, which I'm 100% guilty of, where you kind of go, oh, they're just recopying what we did in our fucking youth and blah, 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 blah. And then there's the other way where you go, hey, that's something that I really love. I hope the next generation really loves it too.
Yeah.
And so when I see movies like The Substance or Terrifier or In a Violent Nature or Longlegs or Arcadian, any of those kind of movies that I've stop motion, any of those movies that are on Shudder or coming out on big Hollywood services, I am seeing a move back towards exploitation, towards graphic horror, towards violence in cinema and sex in cinema in a way that pleases me, because it feels like we're on the precipice of another counterculture.
Yeah,
it feels like we're about to get another punk era.
Like a Tarantino, George Lucas-y kind of effect, where it's like the influences are very stark and sometimes they're a little like kind of shoehorned in, but the influences are the influences, and potentially they'll draw people back to whatever it is that they're being influenced by, whether it's the Rashomon or war movies or these like classic body horror movies. Like, who knows? Like, it's, I think it's easier now to know more about everything. Now being now, and not when you and I met and it was like, what was it, like LimeWire, I guess? Like maybe on a computer in the library, because you don't have one at home. Because you don't have the internet at home. So it's just like, I'll go to the library and I guess I'll download a song and it'll take 45 minutes and I'll probably hate it. Or like you would read the liner notes of a CD that you liked, or you would buy a sampler from a record label or whatever. And now you could just find anything.
Yeah. When I first met you, there was my friend John, who was up in Edinburgh. And what we used to do, and we used to do this when we were in secondary school as well, because we were in different secondary schools, we used to send each other audio cassettes, 60-minute or 90-minute, of like whatever we were listening to right now. Mm-hmm. And then we would each go into each other's record stores in our neighborhoods and search out. Like, I remember finding Telephone Call from Istanbul by Tom Waits on one of his audio cassettes, and immediately going to the local record store, going to the Tom Waits section, being like, which album is this on? Because he didn't write the album, he just wrote who it was.
Yeah.
So that's how I used to kind of like develop my music at that time. And similarly with films, it was all down to who you knew, who you were introduced to, what their upbringing was, what their video rental experience was. And I remember knowing that I was a big fan of Bruce Campbell from the Evil Dead trilogy, which is sort of my big exposure to it. And I remember starting university, and my friend Adam Parks, who I still know today, who's awesome, taking me aside and being like, have you ever seen Sundown, A Vampire in Retreat? And I was like, I didn't even know Bruce Campbell was in other movies. There wasn't IMDb, there wasn't anything. I was like, I didn't know he was in anything other than the Bruce Campbell, the Evil Dead trilogy. And here my friend Adam was like, look at this VHS. I'm like, he's in other movies? Like, I got super fucking excited.
Yeah, and as beautiful as those journeys were for us, like, I really enjoyed finding out things the way that I found things out. But at the same time, I'm so delighted for young people now that it's just like, oh, if you want to go on like a 2-day deep dive on Union songs from like Coal Country, turn of the century, you can just do that. Yeah. Like, you can just do that. And you can just find it in no time.
You're allowed to do that.
And when I was writing my dissertation, I was like, I had to like import CDs. I had to import an Andrew Dice Clay stand-up CD. It cost me like £20.
I'm so sorry.
In 2004.
I'm so sorry about that. That's such a painful memory. I feel that deep within you, that you are still feeling the Andrew Dice Clay conundrum.
I chose the topic I chose, and I believe I am now on a watch list wisely, because I purchased a CD called Head Down, Ass Up. That came with a little cardboard sleeve to cover up the butt.
I know. And what's funny is, I think up until you telling me that story, the only other like visceral memory I have of you showing me like something that you had bought was when you came back from the States and you had bought The Outer Limits on VHS. Yeah. And you were very excited that you had bought The Outer Limits and brought it back from the US. So you've gone, in my estimation, from The Outer Limits to butts covered up in cardboard. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But no, I remember you bringing that back from the States and it being like like, oh my God, The Outer Limits.
Yeah, I got an Outer Limits box set. I got a Mystery Science Theater box set. Jeez, I spent a lot of money on that trip. Yeah. I just love the fact that, like, if you're curious now, you can find out pretty much anything, and you can be, it's so easy to be cool. Like,
no, completely, 100%. And I think that, it's so difficult because I felt like I had a lot of hope that what I was seeing in the geek, nerd, horror, fandom, whatever kind of community you want to call it, but the fact that we had in some pop culture way inherited the earth, and in the fact that dialogue around those things were becoming more prevalent, and you could own certain stuff. Because cool, whatever that is, it actually comes down to knowing yourself and owning what it is you love.
Yeah.
You can, if you fucking love Neil Diamond, like if you love Neil Diamond more than anyone has ever fucking loved Neil Diamond, I will like love you unconditionally, because it's to do with you just loving a thing, not in a confrontational way, not in a in a competitive way.
Yeah, not gatekeepery, just genuine, like, no, this is my thing and I love it. It's like, I know what that is. The thing is different, but the feeling is very much the same.
Right.
I know for a long time I was desperate to be cool. Even when we met, I still very much wanted to be cool. And I had an idea in my head of what it was, and it was always unattainable somehow. I just didn't like have it or whatever. It was like the music was wrong, the clothes were wrong, everything was wrong. It's because the quest for cool is always like a location. It's always external. Like it's always out of your control as well. It's always somewhere else. And when you just like give it up as like, it's like, okay, I'm 31 and I'm still not cool. I guess I'm just never going to be cool. Like, I'm not Joey Ramone. I'm Jerry Rafferty.
Yes.
That's just who I am.
Yeah. Like, I'm not Rob Lowe in St. Elmo's Fire. I'm Andrew McCarthy in St. Elmo's Fire.
I am straight up James Taylor.
Yes.
And
I might even be Emilio Estevez in St. Elmo's Fire. Yeah. Fuck. I might even be the guy who sings the song at St. Elmo's Fire.
But then
John Parr.
But then you find like that's good enough for me.
Oh, that's more than good enough.
I'm like, Jerry Rafferty's pretty fucking cool.
I'm fine with it. Fucking badass.
I did James Taylor at karaoke, and it got a pretty good response. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's cool. Like,
well, yeah, but that's the thing is, and I think seriously, taking it back to the substance, where it plays with this 80s aesthetic of when aerobics was prevalent, late 80s, early 90s, where spandex was the thing, or lycra, and where, like we talked about earlier, women were in the age or under the guise of so-called healthy activity were sexualized or infantilized in the way that actually the very early what they call nudie cuties were, where it was, you know, women and men on the beach in a nudist colony, like throwing a beach ball back and forth from each other or whatever. It was this sort of weirdly chaste yet weirdly erotic kind of nonsense that doesn't bear any kind of full correspondence to human sexuality. It was just a thing. So, and I think that the substance, to some extent, examines what we're talking about, whether it's examining the sexuality of women on TV, or whether it's the what is cool, what is acceptable, what is whatever. And I think what I loved about it was that I felt like Demi Moore was asking those questions too, like as an actor. Like, where am I now? I was an icon in the 80s, an icon in the 90s, an icon in the early 2000s, but like, where am I now? What am I now? Where do we go from here? And what is sort of the next wave? And listen, I think that I honestly think that we'll look back at this time and realize that she's, like she has been every step in her career, she's been 10 steps ahead every time.
Yeah.
I think she's right at the tip of the zeitgeist. Without, again, I sound incredibly pretentious. I'm sorry about that, and I apologize. But what I mean to say is just, I see, whether it's, like I say, Terrifier or stop motion or Inner Violent Nature or The Substance or whatever, or X, Pearl, and Maxine, which I just covered on my friend's show. But whatever those movies that have been coming out in the last 5 to 7 years, those films are pushing us back into a punk era of filmmaking, of music, of pushing the envelope, of kicking back at authority, of screaming into the void. And it was when I got to the end of The Substance and I started to think about it, it was like, if I turn my back on The Substance, if I go with just how I felt in the first half of the movie, I will be turning my back not just on a movie that I think begs to be seen, no matter how you feel about it, but also a movie that, if I look into my heart, is doing everything I wish movies had been doing forever.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I must support the movie, even though we can certainly talk about where it didn't live up to a lot of the message it was trying to purport, and where it also didn't live up to the audience, because it felt like it needed 30 minutes where 10 minutes would have done.
Yeah.
With almost every bit of the message.
Yeah. And as much as I feel, broadly speaking, negatively about it when I watched it, and again, when I rewatched it, I watched it the first time, I could not stop thinking about it. And I was on a quest to find someone to talk to about it, because I talked to Chris about it, my husband, and we talked about it. And I was like, I'm not satisfied with this conversation. I need to talk to more people about it. So I'm like, my buddy over here, Andrew, who watches a lot of movies, I'm like, you need to come to my house and talk to me about this movie. Like my friend Lily, I'm like, I need to talk to you about this movie. And I've just not really gotten to grips with it. And it's just, I mean, we didn't really talk about the movie that much, but we kind of got a little bit.
Yeah, no, and listen, I'm fine right now if you are, but if there was stuff about the movie specifically that we want to get into, I'm happy to get into it. I think that what I love about the film is, and what we should try and embrace in kind of any, again, without wanting to sound pretentious, kind of artistic thing we come across, is, did it make us want to talk? Did it make us want to think?
Yes.
Did it make us want to have an emotion?
Yeah,
and
it did. It made me have several, which is more than I can say for a lot of movies.
Yeah,
like I saw Saturday Night, and I thought it was great. I thought it was super fun. Laughed a lot. Enjoyed the fact that it was like 93 minutes. Loved that. Watched it. Fantastic. Left the movie theater, and I was like, I'll probably never think about that movie again.
Yeah,
because it was fun. It was well done. It was a thing. But I'm like, it didn't really invoke anything in me. Like, it didn't make me.
It feels like well-worn territory. Like, I know Chevy Chase was a dickhead, and I know who Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi were. Like, I mean, I'll go see it, but like, I don't know what it's telling me.
No,
I care anything.
It's cute and it's fun and it's better executed than I thought it would be, and it's entertaining and it's interesting, I guess, like how it's shot and everything. But like, yeah, it didn't make me feel much of anything, because it's like, oh, it's Saturday Night Live. I know about that.
Yeah, I've watched documentaries. I'm good. I owned the first 5 seasons on DVD. Yeah,
in amongst the Andrew Dice Clay, I did watch some SNL as well.
Yes, exactly. I'll never forget at college watching the very much illegal copy of Clockwork Orange on a fuzzy VHS tape in public, as they were showing. This was before I went to Wickham. This was like at sixth form college. This was when I was like 18, and I was sat in the library watching this tape, and it just happened to be the evening that they were showing like prospective people around the library. And I was sitting there watching on fuzzy VHS Malcolm McDowell with a giant porcelain phallus. I looked behind me to see this like very obvious tour group, and I just went, oh, and I paused it and turned it off for that minute till they went past. That's how old I am. So what about Margaret Qualley in the movie? So I mean, obviously Dennis Quaid and Demi Moore, these are like 80s icons who we're now seeing in a whole new light. What did we feel about Margaret Qualley in the movie?
Well, I mean, for most of it, she was just kind of a glassy-eyed drone, which was the part, and she played it well, I think. I didn't feel much about it.
Okay.
I thought she did nicely at the end. The part that I couldn't watch was the teeth pulling thing, because that's like a real personal funk point for me. I just can't deal with another recurring
personal
nightmare. Another recurring nightmare that I have is pulling teeth.
Yes,
and I can, when I see it, I can feel it. So I had to look away for that, even though I knew it was happening. But I thought she did pretty nice work there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a hard body, I feel like, for the most part, which is the bummer, because it's like, I feel like I should probably feel differently about her given the themes of the movie. But I was like, I should think,
I think it's one of those things where I bet it's more interesting for her having completed the work and watched the work and suddenly go, wait, is this the world I'm in? Do you know what I mean? Like as a actor that is sort of early in her career. I think she's starting out, but she's early in her career. And so I wonder when you look back at it, whether she thinks to herself, and I have no corroboration of this, whether she thinks of herself like, oh shit, is that the world I'm in? Because she very much is the avatar for the world I feel we currently live in, where everything is sexualized, everything is infantilized, everything is dumbed down, everything is irrelevance, and everything is distraction. And I never turn on the TV unless I've chosen to watch a movie or chosen to watch a show or chosen to whatever. But in general, if the TV is on and I'm walking past it, I loathe everything that's on it.
Yeah, and obviously for most of the movie, she's fulfilling the expectation of a beautiful woman, which is a pliant, smiling doll.
Right.
Which is fine. And then obviously there's
which is only attractive to a certain section.
Yeah.
It's not everybody.
Doesn't do it for me. The like super flexible thin lady, like it's not my type.
I like someone I can but I like someone I can have a joke with and a conversation with. That's more what I meant.
You had me at Demi Moore.
Yes,
because
exactly.
She's fabulous and she's lived a life and she's incredible.
Yes.
And she's drop dead gorgeous. So,
1,000%.
Yeah, but then there was a certain amount of catharsis when she's kicking the shit out of herself, effectively. Like when she's punishing the older version of herself by very slowly and brutally, like, killing her as best she can. Which it really seems like she should have died like 8 or 9 times in that fight, but I'm not a stunt choreographer, so what do I know?
No.
When you're a tiny old hag and you just like, you can throw my head against like 8 sinks and I'm basically fine.
Why don't I know the name for the person who studies bones, like a boniologist or whatever, like someone who knows like what pressure it would take to exert to snap a femur or whatever.
Scaleologist?
You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know why do we not know? You would think we should know that.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean?
Bone duck.
Like, I know what phrenology is, and phrenology is insane. So if I know what phrenology is, why is it that I don't know who loves skeletons?
Anyway, guy. I don't know.
I don't know. Chiropractors? I have no idea. Anyway, whoever they are.
I mean, just the layperson suggests when you hear that sound, when your head hits tile, you should go to the doctor.
Yes. It is hilarious to me that slapstick is one thing, but sometimes these action movies go way beyond slapstick. You know what I mean? After the hero has had his head thrown against anything twice.
Yeah.
He's done for.
Yeah.
He's done for.
I have to go sit down. I cannot see.
There's no coming back and doing roundhouse kicks and whatever else they're trying to sell us that these guys can do after taking severe head trauma.
Speak for yourself, old man.
Yeah, right? Exactly. I could take head trauma and still jump up and do a roundhouse kick. Of course you could, Alan. Anyway, so the substance. I feel like when we were talking initially on Instagram, you probably had some stronger feelings than you are necessarily explaining right now. Do you still feel those, or did the second viewing soften it a bit?
I do think the second viewing tempered it a little bit because, I mean, I got to tell you, watching it on 1.5 speed improved it significantly because you can squeeze it into like the correct amount of time. Yes. And even then, some parts are like, this is slow. Why am I still looking at this? This is too slow. But it is. It's just like it was slow.
It needs to be divisional by 3. It needs to be 90 minutes so that you can do a 3-act structure so that your audience doesn't
fall asleep.
Right. At the end of the first act, you reveal something, and at the end of the second act, you know how to solve something.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the third act, you've solved it. That's
Classic storytelling.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Classic storytelling. And I feel like this movie was a bit like, you know that thing where women don't feel enough? You know that thing where women don't feel enough? Like, I felt like it was sort of repetitive, which it might have to be in 2024. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a hugely bad thing.
I did find it really repetitive.
Yeah.
And the like, oh my goodness, I feel so seen moments were pretty few and far between.
Well, I think here's something, and am I on something here or am I wildly off? By setting it in the world of the privileged already, like setting it in the Hollywood world, did it immediately, like I was predisposed to kind of not care as much. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like when you see a beautiful rich person feel worthless, it's like, just be worthless, man. It doesn't matter. You got a bunch of money.
Right? Because
it's fine.
Especially now, like as an adult and a homeowner and, you know, as someone who has to have, you know, investments and savings and shit that I just don't, I will never, no one ever taught me any of it. So I don't understand any of it.
It's embarrassing to do the whole thing. It's just so stupid.
But it's sad, when they try and explain it to me, like when finance people try and explain it to me, I'm like, so it's like a casino. You know what I mean? Like I'll win a little bit, but they'll never let me win a lot.
No.
And they're like, no, but blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, right, but all I hear you saying is it's like a casino.
Yes, it's gambling.
The rich people will get richer and the poor people will get slightly less poor.
Here's your cup of quarters. Congratulations.
Right. Yes, exactly. So, but as an adult, kind of going through that and having to deal with all that, the only time that I'm like, God, I fucking wish I had some money is when I could just make a problem go away with it.
Yeah.
It's not about that money makes you happier. It's just that money solves all the shitty bits.
That make you sad. Yes.
That make you sad. You still have to reckon with your happiness and reckon with your health and reckon with your mental health and reckon with pop culture and reckon with, you know, election results. But in general, if my heating implodes and I need $10,000 to fix my heating, or I have to sit down here and freeze to death while wearing 18 blankets, I'd like $10,000 to throw at my furnace, please. It's just, it solves problems.
It's another form of privilege because it's like, it's not going to necessarily solve all your problems, but there's a certain amount of problems that you will not have because you have money.
Right. So it's difficult to sort of, and again, I think that scene that I keep going back to where she's going to get ready for a date with this guy from high school, it was the first time in the movie that had humanized her. Especially because I kind of think to myself, like, when I think of the empowered women that I have watched and liked and love as actors, all of them together, whether it's Jane Fonda or Susan Sarandon, Demi Moore or Pam Grier or whoever it is, Sigourney Weaver, there are enough throughout the decades that you just wish there was that groundswell that was like, the new Hollywood is female. Here is the new Hollywood. Like, here is the new directors and actors of the future, and they're going to tell female stories. I remember when we saw, my friend Jim and I, we saw Olivia Wilde's Booksmart. And it's essentially just the feminine version of Superbad. But I remember coming out of it and talking to Jim and saying, you know what, if I never see, and it's not against Seth Rogen, but if I never see Seth Rogen again, I'll be very happy.
His work is done. He seems like a very nice man, but his work is done.
Right. But you know what I'm saying? Like, even taking something as superficial as Superbad and telling it with a female perspective, with 2 female performers and 1 female director and writer, made me wish that that's all we then got. Like, all we then got was female writers, female directors, female performers telling female stories, because I had so long been in the zone of the male frat boy wanker story, that even that story told through the eyes of two females was more interesting than that story being retold all over again.
Like Blockers. Blockers was fun because it was just sort of like, oh, this is the girls losing it, where the stakes are entirely different, but it was goofy and it was fun, and you had like, it was actiony, and you had like silly like actors that you knew doing goofy stuff, and then you had like new female actors doing like different, also goofy stuff. It was a little bit gross. It was super funny. It was kind of a little bit of everything, and it was familiar but new at the same time. And there is a certain amount of refreshment to that. The refreshment I got from, like, again, I got to go back to it, the nudity, to seeing a 61-year-old woman on screen and being like, that's hot. Like, that's nice. And not in like a exploitative, sexy way, because obviously she's looking at it and not necessarily being into what she's looking at. But I'm like, I can make my own call on that, and that's nice. Like, I like this. I like visually what I'm seeing, but also I like what it means, that it's like she is doing that, and that's amazing.
We also come to this idea that the female body equals X, or the male body equals X, or the whatever it is. Even if it's an androgynous body, or even if it's a trans body or something like that, there is certain things that you see in your head when someone says any of these things that you picture, just based on life experience, advertisements, TV, pop culture, whatever. And I think that what was so good about The Substance was, again, if you're a genuine human being who understands how messy it is, how weird it is, how private it is, how complicated it is, how whatever it is, then you are going to take away a lot from the sequences in which, especially Demi Moore, is bare.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be objectifying. It's going to be both support and love and arousal and all those things, coupled with the empathy that we all know we come to that point where our body is not what it was when it was 25, but that it can still be beautiful, that it still be useful, that it can still be giving the performance Demi Moore is giving in this movie.
Yeah.
It can still be vibrantly relevant.
Yeah. It makes you address the fact that it's like, it's fucked up to be a human soul inside the lump of ham that we are. And it's just like that lump of ham changes over time, and just generally like changes because it feels like it, or changes because you, or wherever you are, or whatever it is. Like it just kind of happens, like due to what you're putting into it, or just what age you are, or whatever it is. Like these things change, and it's just sort of like, oh, what's in here feels constant and feels like you can rely on it. And the meat bag is just doing its meat bag thing. And you're like, I cannot have faith in this. You know what it's like? This is...
Sometimes the meat bag thing goes, help me, I'm a meat bag and I'm failing. And the interior side is just like, ba-da-da-da-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, and then just stop paying attention.
It's wearing a heavenly gown and drinking a glass of Chablis, and you're looking in the mirror and you're seeing the third act of this movie. You're like vomiting a boob, and you're like, well, how do I reconcile these two things? And that's just like having a body.
And as people need to know, while Nick and I have been talking this whole time, I have been vomiting a boob.
Just periodically.
Out of my face.
But you edited them out because you're a professional.
It's interesting, when you were talking earlier about the final scenes where the blob mass Demi Moore scream hybrid monster thing that comes out. By the way, surrounded by topless dancers, which is incredibly meaning of life. It's like the end of Monty Python's meaning of life.
And at a certain point, you get a lady butt in a thong bikini, covered in what is ostensibly menstrual blood. Like
Yes.
To a certain extent, it is implied menstrual blood
Yes.
all over this thing, and it's like, ooh, that's a cool image. That's gonna fuck up some people.
Completely, 100%. And it was wonderful to see basically like Christmas in Heaven, which is the end of Meaning of Life with Graham Chapman in the center playing like a Tom Jones figure and all these sort of topless Santa fairies in the background. It was that. But then, like you say, am I right in reading it with this sort of monstrosity, like kind of covering relentlessly the audience in blood, is like, you deal with it. Like, we've had to deal with it. Like, we constantly deal with it. You now deal with it. How dare you not deal with it?
Yeah.
Like, is that...
And the volume and the length of the thing, where it's clearly more juice than could fit in that one physical lump, that it is, it's generational. It's like, it's gender wide. It's just like an outpouring of all of that, like,
pain and
all of the pain and the rage and the frustration and the misunderstandings and the diminished impact, like all of this stuff where it's just sort of like said that they don't matter, and it's like, well, suck on this for a second. And also this is 200 years of fury and bile.
Yes. I mean, that's how I took it to be. And it felt very visceral and emotional and angry, but also joyous, like a release, like a scream into the darkness or whatever.
Like an action star with just spraying a room with a machine gun at the end of a movie, where it's just like, fuck you. Like, to hell with you. Like, you've pushed me far enough and this is it. And I'm just going to like overkill, just spray the shit out of you with bullets or with just viscera. I found it very effective.
Yeah. And I thought it ended interestingly, because the ending essentially says, let me rest, but it also says, let me rest, but let me be important. Like, let me be part of whatever this iconography is that is built up around her fame and her
like, she wanted to return to her pinnacle no matter what. So she returned as a blob of slime to her star on the Walk of Fame, and then to dissolve into basically nothing and garbage on her star. Yeah, I thought the last 20 minutes were a great movie. I found them super effective.
I'm sure that, and I don't know, I'll need to watch a bunch of interviews with Demi Moore about this, I guess, to see if there have been any actual insightful interviews with her, rather than just sort of EPK kind of puff pieces, which invariably is what we get served about films like this, sadly. I would love to talk very deeply and personally with Demi Moore about the idea of how she sees the last third of this movie relating to the last third of her life, the last third of her career, the last, the closing act of her existence.
Well, and that's worth talking about, because specifically women in Hollywood, more so than men, I strongly believe is still true, that old is a dirty word, that you can't age, and you can't suggest that you're getting older, because it's like, oh, if you're not Helen Mirren or Judi Dench, then there's dick all for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not necessarily that audiences, broadly speaking, don't want to see that, but it's just like, it's just entrenched in women's minds that like nobody wants to see that. And it's like, I don't know, man, I didn't mind seeing it.
No,
That was the whole reason I went to the movie, was to see a 61-year-old woman like be the star of a movie. Like, I wanted to see that.
It's funny. All the people that I tend to like in movies, whether it's 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever, it's people who have real character in their face. I think the thing that I loathe the most is when I go to a TV show or a movie and it's just a wall of pretty people.
Yeah.
Because I immediately go...
Nothing less compelling.
Less compelling.
Yeah.
And it's when you look at the people I tend to gravitate towards, whether it's Donald Pleasance or whether it's Peter Weller or whether it's Wings Hauser or whether it's Michael Moriarty, or even when it's, Pam Grier or Sigourney Weaver or whatever, it tends to be people with a lot of baggage and complications and life lived. It tends to be people with a lot of talent and skill and things learned and all the rest of it. And it tends to be people who are always going to be considered, slightly lesser than, even though I think that they are far better than.
Yeah. Did you see Thelma? The movie Thelma?
Yes.
That movie was incredible.
Who was in that again? Sorry,
June Squibb.
Yes.
Richard Roundtree.
Yes. I love that. Richard Roundtree. Yes, fantastic.
A legend.
Movie.
That was
yes,
that was an
that.
incredible.
June Squibb's one of my favorite actors.
She was wonderful in it. The portrayal of deafness I thought was super interesting. The tie into an action movie with old people, and also the fact that it was a very similar movie to Beekeeper, the Jason Statham movie.
Yes,
and I was just like, why did they make this movie twice?
Yeah, it's very weird. Beekeeper is very weird. Beekeeper is what
a screensaver. It's not a movie. I'm convinced.
No, it's not a movie.
No.
It's the popular. So I've been a Jason Statham fan since the first Transporter movie.
Absolutely.
I love Jason Statham.
It's his range.
Breathes through his nose.
It's the range and the vibrancy that he brings to a role that really just lights up the screen.
Just lights up the screen. But it's depressing to have been a Statham fan through the Homefront years and the Wildcard years and the Meg 2 years, only for The Beekeeper, which is a much lesser Statham rendition than, say, Safe or Redemption or Crank 2 or Transporter 1, 2, or 3. While The Beekeeper is a much lesser movie, people have embraced it. And it's become really frustrating. It's the double standard where on one hand I'm like, I love Jason Statham movies. I'm glad people are discovering Jason Statham movies. But you weren't there in the beginning, man. You didn't live through you didn't live through Transporter 3 and Homefront and Operation Rue de Guerre or whatever it was called. God, that was fucking abysmal. You haven't lived through that, man. You don't get to call yourself a fan just because you watch The Beekeeper and you suddenly think you invented.
No, but then you watch The Beekeeper and you're like, fuck yeah, this is funny.
No, I mean, it's funny as fuck, but it's not a great Statham movie. But a lot of people are like claiming it's a great Statham movie.
Well, you're a purist.
I am a purist. I'm a Statham purist. Which even I know is a tautology of ludicrous levels.
I look forward to your dissertation.
Yes. Oh, you have no idea, Nick. I could give a dissertation on Stathamonics from now until Christmas.
Please no.
No, please no. Please no. Please no. John, whatever it is, stop now. I haven't seen anything else by this writer-director, Coralie Fargeat. Fargeat. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But she did do the movie Revenge, which has been on one of my watch lists forever.
That was well received.
Yeah, it's been on my, it's one of those that was like, oh, it went on to Shudder or whatever, and I'll be able to watch it on Shudder, and it's on my list of new-ish movies to watch. But I think having watched and enjoyed The Substance, I'd like to go back to Revenge, because Revenge, from what I understand, is the rather exploitative and gross out rape revenge movie from the 70s, typified by stuff like The Last House on the Left or movies like that, or Straw Dogs. Revenge is one of those, but again, told from, I've got to assume, a female point of view. In the way that The Substance cherry picks from any number of either Cronenberg, Wes Craven, Sam Raimi, John Carpenter horror movies, but it does it through the watchful eye and the prism of a female perspective. And so I'd be very interested, because clearly both me and the director are very big fans of genre film, just by what she's referencing in her productions. And I'm the one person who has said throughout podcasting, I just want to see these stories, but told from a different perspective. And so I probably owe myself to go back and watch Revenge.
Sure.
Was there anything else you wanted to say about the substance?
No, I think
that we didn't get round to.
I think I covered everything that I wanted to say about the substance, and apparently several things I wanted to say about 24. So
yes. Listen, Jack Bauer has a way of getting into any and all conversations. Damn it, Chloe! Yeah, he's amazing. You gotta talk like this. If you're cute for something, you've got to constantly whisper.
Yeah.
That's got to really get bad on the larynx, like at some point.
He really perfected the goddamn it. Like, he's really.
God damn it, Chloe.
Yeah.
Just get me what I need. Zoom in on this fucking barely third-degree video surveillance camera.
Yeah, I've got this CCTV footage from 6th Street and, like, wherever. Yeah. And it's like, oh, yeah, so we can read his license plate. I'm like, you can't read jack shit.
Can you focus in on that? And they, like, just press a button and it just goes... And I'm like, yeah, it's always like when right now with AI, when they're like, download that app and we'll make your old-timey photos look like brand new photos. And you run it through and then the photo just comes out looking like some weird Dilbert cartoon. That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, that's where
grumpy.
we're at with this shit. Yeah, this is not what happened. Like, everyone's just got, like, no facial features. It's just, like, 2 dots and a smile. Everyone looks like the 7-Up guy, Fido Dido. Everyone just looks like that.
Yeah.
We've made Grammy's photos look great. Yeah. And just everyone looks like Fido Dido.
Cool reference, John.
Yeah, hip reference.
Yeah.
Local, like up to the minute.
Super cool.
Zeitgeist reference.
Yes.
But no, I'd be excited to watch Revenge. And I generally feel like the substance, as much as I've got, issues with it, especially with pacing, because I think it needs to trust its audience that by the time we've understood what the process is, which only takes one round of it happening, we will jump forward to what's the catch. Because essentially it's like a Cinderella story or a Faust story. The Faust story is you can have whatever you want, but the catch is I get your eternal soul.
Yeah.
The Cinderella story is you can pretend to be a princess for a night, but like it's all going to go back to being a pumpkin and rags tomorrow morning, and you've got to figure out how to deal with that. And so the substance is kind of both those stories, kind of squished into one. And like I said earlier, we are going to jump ahead. We are going to... You've got to trust your audience to hypothesize the next 3 steps ahead in the chess game, right? And did you? I feel like, therefore, we could have lost a lot out of the first act.
Big time. I think we did too many go-arounds.
But in general, if this director makes another movie, or if this ushers in an age of comedy, horror, satirical
here for it.
Movies, you're here for it. 1,000%. Me too. I like going to the movies. I like sitting around for a couple hours and having a good laugh. Like, I certainly got that. Yeah. No, it was. It was inventive. It was funny. It was gory. It was weird. And I feel like, if nothing else, if I can leave you with some hope. Yes. After so much despair. If we can at least enter a new... It at least feels like pop culture is finally screaming back into the void. It's finally saying fuck it to the status quo. And if the status quo is defined by Marvel, DC, movies, remakes, sequels, all that stuff, some of which I very much enjoyed, but some of which needs to just know where to go away. If we're about to get some punk rock filmmaking, and I feel like this was definitely punk rock filmmaking, if nothing else, I'm all here for it. Yeah. I want it. Bring it on. Yeah, because the giant super blockbuster, the Marvels and the existing IP stuff, it's fine, and it's certainly a money spinner, but we've been doing it for
when did I start working in the movie theater? Yeah, we've been doing it for 20 years. First Spider-Man,
Yes.
20 years. 20 years plus. It's like, I think it's fine if you can keep doing it and keep going back to that cash cow, like go ahead.
Right.
But give us something else on the back end. Like use that money to make like something fun, encourage new people, like develop new talent, like really incubate things or do something cool. Like, because
I agree.
Squeezing existing IP is just like, is so cynical. And I just don't think moviegoers are that cynical.
Well, I think it's because producers misunderstand the lessons that they get. So like the success of Deadpool and Wolverine, they probably go, oh, it's the success of the idea of comic book movies, and we just need to write a better one, and we wrote a better one, and now comic book movies are back in vogue again. No, the success of Deadpool and Wolverine had everything to do with its transgressive nature and nothing to do with its superhero-ness. No, couldn't give a fuck about its superhero.
Charismatic leading men
it was about
doing goofy, interesting stuff. It was a comic book movie in spite of itself. In my understanding, I'm like,
no, totally.
I'm like so on the fringe of all of this stuff. Like, I really haven't watched a comic book movie in a really long time. But my understanding of that one is like, oh, this is just like charismatic, good actors doing something fun. Whereas like the trailer for Venom, Jesus, that thing made me want to slit my throat. It looked like I can't understand I can't understand what either of them is saying. No. The sticky monster man or the regular human man, like that's just mushmouth.
It should so be called Sticky Monster Man. That's amazing.
I'm really bringing my my old Biddy vibes to the.
Tom Hardy is Sticky Monster Man in Sticky Monster Man. Yeah, I would watch
making
that.
It real Nana at the end for you. Yeah, that doesn't appeal to me as a movie because it just looks like. I've seen it before. Like you did this already.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think what you end up getting when you invest so hard in cookie cutter Hollywood is you start to see very, very quickly the old theory that there is really only 7 stories.
Yeah.
And in fact, those 7 stories can be boiled down to probably 3 stories.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about the new feminism in Hollywood that's emerging, which I hope continues to emerge at a much quicker pace, is they might be telling the same stories, but they're telling them in a way that we've never heard before, or we've only heard all too rarely with like a Catherine Bigelow or, occasional genre directors who happen to be female and happen to tell stuff from a female perspective.
Yeah.
But in general, it's a new phenomenon, and I'm here for it. But Nick, is there anything that you would ever want to potentially promote? Do you want to tell people where they can find you or anything like that, or are you not interested in being found?
Not particularly interested in being found.
Okay.
What would I like to promote? I don't know. I like going to the movies. You should go to the movies.
Go to the movies. Promote going to the movies.
Yeah.
And being a semi-decent person.
I mean, semi-decent person was a given. But I mean, I live in LA, and it's an embarrassment of riches over here vis-a-vis movie theaters. So if I want to go see a brand new movie in IMAX, I have like 5 options. If I want to go to a repertory theater, I have 100 options, and they're all incredible. Just find local programming, go see movies in real life, and because it brings me a lot of joy.
And I've talked a lot about the fact that a lot of people have said to me when I moved out of New York City, don't you miss this? Don't you miss that? Don't you miss the movies? Don't you miss this? And I found in Connecticut, if you look around your community, you will find people who have opened video stores. You will find people who have got a drive-in movie theater. You will find people who are hosting retro double bills or whatever it is. And when people say, do you miss this, this, and this? I'm like, sure, okay, I can't go with maybe the frequency that I used to in New York. New York had like 12 art house retro theaters that were showing Batcat stuff. Connecticut has 3. Okay, so I can't go quite as frequently. But the fact that I can still scratch that itch, I can't imagine it's just isolated to Connecticut, New York, and Hollywood. It's got to be out there in the world.
And whenever you leave a place, you're always going to miss something. Like, I'm sure, like, like, oh, what do you miss about living in England, John? Is it like, I don't know, like meat pies or whatever? Like, I miss
Bobby Davro, mainly Bobby Davro.
For me, it's meat pies. Like savory pies is a real
savory pies.
It's a real problem for me.
1,000%.
I got a real sausage roll hankering a lot of the time. But the flip side of it, you miss things when you move on from stuff. But what you get is ideally something better.
I found my local Italian takeout place. Incredible. Great pizza, great everything. But I have a hankering for Newcastle's own bolognese chips.
Oh, yeah.
Which the only place I'd ever had bolognese on chips was in a Newcastle chippy.
Stupid regional stuff that you're just like, I cannot get this and I want it more than anything.
Yeah. So I found that the French fries or chips that the Salinas does, excellent. I mean, they are excellent. You can cover them in salt and vinegar. They're like fish and chip.
Oh, wow.
Proper chip shop.
Unusual. That's hard to find over here.
Yes. Proper chip shop chips. Incredible. They use the right oil. They double fry them. It's fantastic. It's exactly what you want. I get that. And then I get their bolognese meat sauce.
Nice.
And I go back in time by like 22 years. And I just go, bolognese French fries are the best fucking thing on the planet.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
And thank you for being on the show. It really does mean a lot.
It was my pleasure.
It was fantastic to have you on the show. And if you ever want to come back on after this long, shambolic, rambling, incoherent, and whatever, if you want to come back on, you're welcome to come back on whenever you want.
I will let you know next time I watch a stinker that I somehow also love.
Yes. That's kind of how I would describe it. Yeah. Go watch In Violent Nature. It's equally a stinker that I somehow love.
Okay.
Yeah. But thank you ever so much, Nick. This has been great. All right. So to end this episode, this is a song that I wrote last night. Hopefully the band Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, which will either be me or some of my collaborators, will release the song sometime in December, hopefully in time for Bandcamp Friday, if I can write enough songs by then. But anyway, I was writing this last night, having lots of fun recording it, and thought, why don't I record it in sort of a Dylan-esque way? So this is a song you haven't really heard of before that I have Dylanized, or Dillified, or Dylan-upped, or Dylan'd up? I don't know. Anyway, this is a song, but I do it in the Dylan style. It really doesn't matter. Just enjoy it. Just look, it's free. You don't have to listen.
Every day, the thoughts that grind away inside my skull are drilling little holes into the bone. Wrestle with them quietly when we're together. They're banging pots and pans when I'm alone. And mostly I can put up with the din. I'm living under my skin. Building comfort and containment in the calcium. Ready, breaking free of the slither. They send out sinusoidal waves from shore to shore, seemingly without any particular purpose. And if you follow closely, you can trace back just where you've been. I'm living under my skin. Do you wait until the waves stop crashing, with motivation still in short supply? Do you walk away from the table and just cash in, or build a raft of endless music, solid in its reply? I'm living under my skin. I'm living under my skin. Sometimes the words take warrants that you fall down now and then. No clarity or culmination coming soon. Fixating on the frustrations of what and when, knowing that you'll never be immune. But maybe there's respite in the songs that we sing, and living under my skin. Oh yeah, and living under my skin. That's how Dylan would do it.